Hi again.
Hey guys. All right, we are back trying live one more time, and we had some sound issues before, so hopefully you can hear us better now.
Will we be able to tell? We're not hitting that screen.
We aren't, I know. I don't know what the difference is. Oh, I'm watching here. So.
Oh, good. Just read our lips if you can't hear it.
I know, hopefully you can. So we'll reintroduce ourselves. I am Kristen Howerton. I blog at Rage Against the Minivan.
I'm Paul Martin. I blog at Paulo Sophia.
And Paul and I are old friends, and we are political junkies, and we sit at different sides of the political spectrum. I am a democratic socialist.
And I am a moderate Republican.
And we've been doing this series for, gosh, I mean, like 3-4 months now.
Yeah, since there were 15 Republican
Uh-huh.
candidates, and now there's one.
Yes, and now there's one, not the one either of us wanted. So we typically do this talk on Periscope. We are shifting to Facebook Live tonight, attempting to.
No small feat.
No, I know. Despite technical difficulties, we're a half hour in our attempts, but hopefully you can hear us this time. In fact, if you can hear us, leave us a comment and let us know, because we want to make sure that you can hear us okay. All right, so we're just going to dive right into what we were talking about before, which our topic for the evening is this curious alliance between the Republican Party and conservative Christians.
Yeah, which has been going on for decades. And Donald Trump this week met with a group that he invited to New York, evangelicals, that he hand-selected, and he's courting that group, and at least one of them, or certainly many of them, are behind Trump. These are evangelical Christians like Ralph Reed, for example, who is nuancing his way into trying to convince that constituency that Donald Trump is the right man for America. There's one thing that stood out to me, perhaps more than anything else. I didn't look at everything that was said, but Donald Trump criticized Hillary Clinton's faith in his speech to this group, and he didn't say anything specific, which is very classic Trump method.
And we discussed this before if you didn't hear us, but you know, that non-specificity is actually a manipulation technique, and it's where you use an element of you know, this ability to sort of deny that you said it because you're intentionally vague. So you lead people to the water, but you don't quite make them drink.
Right.
Which is what he does quite often.
He does, and so recently he said of President Obama, we don't really know what's going on with his faith.
Right, that's an example.
And this is his famous line, we don't really know what's going on. So he said this with respect to Hillary Clinton's faith. And he said, we really don't know what it's all about.
Right.
But this is where I, as a Christian, you know, President Obama and Hillary Clinton, I might not agree with their policies, but they're on record for decades of confessing their Christian faith, attending church. In the case of Barack Obama, getting married in a Christian church, having his children baptized in a Christian church, and making very explicit faith claims that are every bit as articulate and theologically sound as ones I would make.
Right.
And so I'm not in a position, like Donald Trump seems to be, to say that Hillary Clinton isn't a Christian.
Yeah, and it's a really curious thing to hear from him because he's not a person prior to this election, and he's been in the public eye for years, that I would ever consider to be a Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and I'm not going to question his faith, but I do have to look at his lifestyle and go, this doesn't really look, you know.
Yeah, and frankly, I almost find myself slipping left over this because, and you know, maybe you grin and think, yay, but you're not trying to convince me. But without any question, if a person was at the top of the Democratic ticket with his moral and ethical baggage, which includes adultery, which he confessed, multiple wives, disgusting comments about women, such as you got to treat them like shit, and if you know, I mean, I would just love to see what the evangelicals would be doing with that Democratic candidate.
Right.
And yet there were leaders like Ralph Reed who are saying, this is my guy.
Well, you know, there was a photo going around today that I thought was, you know, it kind of said it all, and it was a photo of him with two of the evangelical leaders that were at this meeting that he just had, where he sort of appointed an evangelical cabinet, and behind him on his wall is a photo of himself on the cover of Forum and a photo of himself on the cover of Playboy with a porn star. And it's just, it really feels like evangelical leaders who, and again, I'm concerned with the hypocrisy, right? So these evangelical leaders who all along have said it's all about putting someone in office who matches our ideals, and these are people who have been very, you know, very firm on like making sure that they're putting someone in office who matches their faith, are suddenly like turning a blind eye to all this stuff.
Yeah, and even, I mean, for decades, I've wondered if the issue is matching their faith versus matching a certain moral ideology, which is marriage between a man and a woman, faithfulness to that woman, you know, sexual purity, of which Trump is none.
None.
And I'm not saying that in a judgmental tone. I'm saying
Right.
as a matter
Like
of
just
fact.
right. Exactly.
The man is anything but that
Right.
kind of poster child man of character.
Yes.
So the evangelicals love George W. Bush. The religious right loved George W. Bush. But there was a good reason to, based on that morality.
Yeah.
Nobody really questioned his moral life. His marriage to Laura seemed genuine and good, as ironically does Barack's to Michelle, which they don't want to talk about. But in the case of Donald Trump, he's an absolute disaster on that issue.
Right.
So to have these pillars of, you know, Jerry Falwell Jr., Ralph Reed coming out endorsing Donald Trump,
Yeah.
something's going on.
Well, I mean, is it just, is there a blind faith to the Republican Party? You know, that's what it feels like to me. And I honestly felt that way in the last election, where I watched a number of evangelical Christians who, and I will say for myself personally, I would have no problem with a Mormon being in the office of the presidency. However, I was raised in a family where I literally went to classes about how Mormonism was a cult, how they are wrong, how to talk to them about how wrong they are. You know, so this, I grew up with people who really considered Mormons to be wrong.
Yeah.
And suddenly these very people that I grew up with are voting for him for presidency. It's the hypocrisy that bothers me. Not the fact that they're supporting a Mormon, but just the fact that I know that if the tables were flipped, they would be saying, this isn't a person of God, this is a false prophet, blah, blah, blah. And now to see these same people, I mean, in my own family, supporting Trump, and these are people who are, you know, thought Clinton was of the devil.
Yeah. Yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
And I think we're like trying to get to the bottom. Like I find myself digging and digging and trying to get to the bottom of why would Ralph Reed, why would Jerry Falwell Jr. support Donald Trump on all of the major issues. He hasn't been in their camp, and it just makes me want to dig and want to ask the question, why? And I think perhaps one answer is abortion.
I was just about to say,
Were
I
you?
feel like we need to talk about the scarlet letter, the A, abortion, because I do think that abortion for a very long time has been a single issue, you know, kind of voting determinant for a lot of evangelicals. It's like they can overlook a lot of different issues, but abortion for a lot of Christians is a litmus test of where you are with your faith. And I'm still seeing that, you know, and people are saying, like I'm seeing people, it's interesting the justifications I'm seeing from evangelical Christians who are saying, well, you know, I don't agree with Trump, but we have to think about the Supreme Court justices, and that
Right.
conversation is about abortion,
Right.
because they're under some fantasy that that'll be overturned with the right nominations of Supreme Court justices. Which here's the thing, I don't think abortion will ever be illegal. I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be this sort of litmus test. But again, Donald Trump in this case.
Yeah, he's been staunchly pro-choice up until yeah, the years
And he
surrounding.
supports Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
I think, and again, we don't plan most of these talks, and we're just kind of grasping for answers, but I think that just this hatred, it's a very binary way of thinking. I hate Democrats.
Right.
And I have to vote for Republicans because I
Yeah.
hate Democrats. I mean,
Yeah.
that with some of the people I speak with who are fairly conservative Republicans, there doesn't even seem to anymore be any rational basis. I mean, I could just point out some of Trump's, he's basically for single-payer healthcare, nationalized health, neutral on Israel and Palestine. I mean, these are kind of the pinnacle Republican
Yeah.
issues, and they just seem to hate Hillary in spite of the fact that they're candidate on moral grounds,
Right.
on
They
social
hate
grounds.
Hillary. So let's talk about that for a minute. Why do Christian Republicans hate Hillary? Because I've seen the same thing. I mean, again, in my own family, we've got to beat Hillary at all costs. What's the hate about Hillary about?
I don't know. I mean, I know that some of you are going to say, well, Benghazi and the emails and whatnot, which are all allegations. She hasn't been convicted of anything. You guys don't want to admit that, but it's a matter of fact. You know, and then going as far as murdering Vince Foster, there have been 5 independent investigations. He committed suicide. I can't really get to the bottom of it. And I was listening to Ralph Reed today. He did an interview following the Trump meeting with the evangelicals. And he said, you know, there's a big misconception. I don't want to talk in like political jargon, but he basically said, you know, we evangelicals don't follow identity politics. A lot of people think that we're the kind of party that just, you know, if you're for abortion, we're going to be for you, and if you're not for abortion, we're not going to be for you. And Reed was saying that's not true. That was his reason why he could support Trump.
But I think it is true.
It is true.
I mean, you know, I think it is true.
Yeah. And we have to go back to race, because what's fascinating to me, and we keep going back to race, I think racism is a significant part of why Donald Trump has the traction that he does. Myself, I believe there's a lot of latent racism in this country. I think a lot of people are pissed off that the whites are not going to be in the majority as of 2042. And I think Trump has tapped into that. I don't think it's a mystery at all that he continues with comments against Mexicans, against African Americans, saying to an African American, look at my African American there.
Okay, I just had a light bulb.
Okay.
So do you think that perhaps for many of these evangelicals we're talking about, nationalism is actually higher than Christianity? And Christianity is a part of that nationalism because it's a part of that identity, but actually like this whole America / white / you know, like maybe that's really the higher value here for a lot of these people, and they would never admit it. But that whole Make America Great Again, their Christianity is really a facet of their nationalism. Yeah. And by nationalism, I mean, you know, an idea that Americans are better than anyone else, that there is a specific, you know, kind of racial heritage identity associated with being American. Yeah,
and I think Pat Buchanan came out and said that. And what's absolutely riveting people about the religious right, that whole movement, is it was founded in the late 60s, early 70s, not based on Roe versus Wade. It was founded based on Bob Jones University. Yeah. And you can just Google it. Go Google Bob Jones University religious right, and you will see pages and pages of what happened was Bob Jones University, an evangelical Christian school, was discriminating against African Americans. They couldn't go to the school until 1971. Between 71 and 75, they could only go to the school if they were married. And up until the year 2000, if you were an African American, you couldn't date a white person at Bob Jones Evangelical Christian University. And Google this. This is a matter of fact. The religious right was founded. It came together around the issue of Bob Jones University fighting the U.S. Supreme Court, because the U.S. Supreme Court took the tax exemption away.
Right.
And so the whole thing came around Christians saying, we want to be racist. Right. We want to be able to discriminate. We don't want black people in our college. That's how it founded. And it wasn't until later that they thought, okay, well, you know, this issue's over. What other issue can we get around? Yeah. And abortion became that issue.
You know, it's interesting too.
That's a fact. I mean, that's just Google it.
It is a fact, and I also would recommend people Google, you know, some of Frank Schaeffer's commentary on this. Frank Schaeffer is Francis Schaeffer's son. Francis Schaeffer was, you know, a big evangelical leader, but he really was kind of behind some of this marriage, some of this partnership. And Frank is his son, and Frank was behind much of this as well. You know, in his early adulthood, he was making propaganda videos for the Republican Party, you know, and really pushing that narrative. And Frank has since really shifted. And Frank is very liberal now and very, very critical of this marriage. And if you, like, he was interviewed on Samantha Bee, I think, a couple weeks ago. And he's a friend of mine. We should try to get him to Skype in with us sometime.
That'd be amazing.
He's a fascinating guy. Yeah. but really he was there at the helm of this marriage in his young adulthood and has since really denounced it and said that his father even would not approve of the current climate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still, as a Republican, I still scratch my head every day. And I have dialogue with fellow Republicans that I knew for decades in morality, evangelical Republican morality was kind of the base of why they stayed Republicans. And now you have Trump.
And it just, the whole thing has sort of fallen apart. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to push that button.
Yeah. Interesting.
So the election.
The election. Well, what's new? I mean,
it's fascinating. I mean, it looks like Trump's. I wonder if I should get that. I wonder if it's vital.
Close. No,
Okay.
it's not. I can see it over here.
Sorry, we are so low tech. Yeah, I mean, Trump. You know, the basic story on the street is that Trump's getting trounced. He's got $1 million in the bank. A lot of state senators that are running have more money than that in the bank. Mm-hmm. He had to fire Lewandowski. He has no infrastructure. Hillary is obviously a well-oiled machine, and now she's up in the polls 6, 7 points. And a lot of the GOP candidates, I forgot to disable. Unfortunately, I don't get that many. So if it was yours, we'd be shut down. So. So far, I mean, Hillary is absolutely demolishing Trump, and he has a staff of 80. Hillary has a staff of 800.
Yeah.
She's got $45 million in the bank. He has one.
Yeah.
And the idea is that he did well running against 15 other Republicans, where Twitter and calling into news channels worked. But I mean,
Hillary.
I
mean, it remains to be seen. There are a lot of people that dislike Hillary, and I have to say, I mean, again, I'm. Ride or die for Bernie. I'm not ride or die for Bernie. Actually, I should really clarify. I will vote for whoever is running against Trump. But I do love Bernie, and I really feel like less people despise him, and I feel like he would actually be a better candidate against Trump because I don't think, I think there's a lot of evangelicals in the middle, like yourself, who, or even maybe a little more right, who really don't want to vote for Hillary, but they might vote for Bernie.
Yeah.
And because he doesn't seem as caustic, he doesn't seem as feminist, which I'm not saying that that's a negative thing, but I think for a certain demographic that feels safer. Because I think some people hate Hillary because she's so feminist, in that conservative camp. But anyway, all that to say, I think she is a more palatable opponent to Trump for those middle folks.
Right.
But I mean, he's hanging on by a thread at this point, and it's a matter of time, I'm assuming, before, and even as his most strident supporter, it's a matter of time before that campaign reaches its.
Yeah, I mean, he's all but said that he's out.
I know.
But I mean, I just have to look on so many levels. The Clinton campaign, cash, stayed on message. Just surrogates, the people, the governors and House members and Senate members and state senators who will go out and go speak her talking points to their constituencies.
Yeah.
She has a machine of thousands who are taking her talking points, going out and talking, not to mention the $50 million in ads that she's starting, I think, this week. And Trump is just kind of flat-footed. Obama's former campaign manager, David Plouffe, said that Trump's lazy. That he made a comment that Trump's lazy. He just, in this kind of arrogance, he thought that he could use Twitter and his own mechanism.
I will say, though, I mean, I hate to admit this, but I do think if Trump needed to rouse up some money, he could. I mean, there's, especially as he's courting the evangelicals, I think he could have another $1 million in the bank in like a week.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that. Apparently they raised $2 million today.
Okay.
He did a matching gift or something like that.
Yeah.
But
I think he's been lazy because he feels entitled. I mean, he's had no competition yet. And I think once, the competition is clear, that it's a two-person race, I think he'll amp it up and continue to be it.
Or, I mean, there's a big debate amongst Trump strategists as to whether, if you corral him and he suddenly starts speaking according to the teleprompters,
Uh-huh.
then he loses the very spark that got him there.
That could
Apparently,
be.
Paul Malford, his campaign manager, is wanting him, as well as every other Republican establishment member, to speak only the speeches that are showing up on the teleprompters. But
Good
there's
luck
a
with that.
yeah, there's a question as to whether he has his spark, and this is the guy that lambasted people for using teleprompters. So the question is whether the kinder, gentler Donald Trump will suffice.
Yeah.
And I don't think he will. I mean, I don't think the Trump supporters, the ones that I know, are. It's got to be urgent. I bet you they can't
Dear
hear
friends,
us.
if you're watching, you
I
cannot
bet they can't hear us.
stop messaging me right now.
Can they hear us?
Yes, they
Okay.
can hear us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Seriously, like I've never seen anything like this. Why is it texting you?
I don't know.
So here we are. We have a convention in July, Republican convention.
Yeah.
Democratic convention's the next week. The Democrats are an advantage. The party that goes second has an advantage. My prediction is Clinton is going to absolutely wipe Trump in every single way. The infrastructure that she has, the money that she has, Trump's negatives are at 70%.
Yeah.
Most Republicans, I mean, the leaders, Paul Ryan, they're not even really endorsing him. It's kind of a,
Yeah.
I'll vote for him, but they're going and spending their time and money raising money for the congressional races.
Right. I hope you're right. I really do. I hope you're right. Scary.
We'll see.
I know. All right, thanks for joining us. We will be back next week, and we will post these to both of our blogs, Raging Against the Minivan, and
Paula Sophia.
thanks for joining. Chad. I don't know why he was showing up
Something on
there.
my
in
nose
that
or
line.
something?
No, he was just,
Is he heckling?
No, he's just like. giving us
He's saying something about
information.
my.
No, well, and I'm trying to figure out why is iMessage coming through on yours?
I didn't disable it.
Wait, he's saying it to you.
Yeah, he's sending me.
He's saying it to